Hey everybody, it is Rick. I'm here with August week 2 reviews, and I am so on top of things. Today is August 15th, and these are the reviews from August 8th to the 14th. So I made sure last night before I went to sleep that all my reviews were written out, typed out, ready to go. I'm going to move this back a little. Ready to go so I could do this video because I want to be done. I want to be like everything that I have up until this point watched and purchased all in videos. So that is what we're going to do today. Well, obviously you'll see future videos, but you know what I mean. So we're going to dive right in. We have 8 movies to talk about, so a little longer than last week's review video. And the first title we have is a movie that I've seen before. I saw it in the movie theaters, but Bridget had not seen it. And the sequel was getting ready to come out when we watched this. So I wanted her to check it out. And there's a film called Don't Breathe. So I have not seen this movie, so like I said, since seeing it in theaters. When I made the unfortunate decision to take my youngest sister to go see this. At the time, she was probably like 15 or 16. And there's a scene that everybody talks about when they mention this movie. When that happened in the film, my sister just checked out of the movie. She was totally done with what was going on in the film. So this isn't your typical horror movie. I don't know if I would classify this as horror personally. I definitely think this is like a home invasion thriller suspense film, in my opinion. Definitely a very brutal film in parts, for sure. My personal favorite scene of the movie, and I'll try to keep it as vague as possible, is a movie that takes place in the basement. And it's when, obviously, if you're not familiar with this movie, 3 people go into a blind man's house because they want to rob him of a cash settlement. And yeah, so they're in the basement and the blind man's down there and he decides to turn off all the lights to sort of make it an even playing field. And it's just shot very cool. I think it is a very fun scene, very suspenseful. So when we were getting ready to watch this, my girlfriend Bridget had mentioned that she really wanted to watch Wait Until Dark, which I guess is about a blind woman and 3 men go into her apartment, and we'll talk about it soon. How's that? I promise. Like, wait a movie or two and we'll talk about it. So, but yeah, I really enjoy this. I think it's a very well done film. I've heard very mixed things about the second movie, so I don't know if we're going to rush to theaters to see it. We might just wait till it comes out on physical or can watch it at home. So Don't Breathe is a 4 out of 5 for me. Really enjoy this movie. I think it's well done and just a really creepy film. So next up is the newest A24 film, The Green Knight, which stars Dev Patel. So this movie is very hard for me to rate because the movie is beautiful. I'll start out with the positives. The movie is beautiful. Dev Patel gives an outstanding performance in the movie. You know, I cannot hate on that, but the movie is just so slow. It is incredibly slow paced. We actually had a situation where a thunderstorm came in during the movie that we were at. We saw this with Riedel Unlimited. And the power went out in theaters for probably like 10 or 15 minutes. It came back on and they restarted the film, but the movie was already slow. And at that point, you know, when the power went out, we were all just sitting there. I checked my phone and I realized that we had only been sitting there for an hour. And the movie had like over a 2-hour runtime. Not much over 2 hours, but it was just incredibly slow paced. I will say the second half of the film was much more interesting to me. Definitely kept me intrigued throughout. So I can't hate on this film. A movie is definitely outside of my comfort zone. Not something I would typically watch. Bridget was very surprised when I said I wanted to see it. But they did a really good job in the trailer selling the film and made me want to check it out. So, you know, A24, once again, Not a guaranteed hit every time. I know on Letterboxd, some people have this as like a half-star, one-star movie. Other people have it as a 5-star masterpiece. On Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 50% because I think people will either love this movie or hate it. I was right in the middle. A 2.5 out of 5 for The Green Knight for me. Like I said, out of my comfort zone, beautiful movie. Dev Patel was amazing in the film. That's all I can say. Next up, I teased this in my pickup video on Friday, and I just teased it 3 minutes ago, and that is Wait Until Dark, which stars Audrey Hepburn, my first Audrey Hepburn movie I've ever watched. Also, Alan Arkin plays an awesome villain in this movie. So, it is about Susie, who is recently become blind, and there's a doll that was heroin stuffed in the beginning, and there's 3 bad guys looking for this doll, and it ended up in Susie's apartment. They pretend to be different people and characters and try to pull this elaborate ruse. But Audrey Hepburn is pretty dang smart. And, you know, the movie is very interesting. Definitely gives off serious vibes of like a play, which I believe it started as or turned into a play. Let's see. I believe it was a play at first. This says, yeah, produced on the New York stage based on a play. So, yeah. It definitely felt like a play. 99% of the movie takes place in the apartment. 95% of the movie takes place in the apartment that Susie, Audrey Hepburn, lives in. And I mentioned that when we watched Don't Breathe, Bridget was like, we need to check this out. So a few nights later, I said, let's watch it, because I had never seen it before. We got it from the Warner Archives sale. I got serious vibes of like Rear Window, very Hitchcockian in parts. I know Stephen King has this as like one of the scariest movies of all time, one of the most suspenseful, one of those. The last 15 minutes of the movie, the suspense is elevated through the roof. I was reading about it that like theaters, the movie was being advertised as like theaters keeping the movie at the darkest, the movie theaters is at the darkest level possible. People weren't allowed to like light up a cigarette during the last 15 minutes of the movie because you could smoke back then in theaters. Like it had to be pitch black, which adds to the story. A pretty cool, like almost like Psycho did, where you know, if the movie had started, people weren't allowed in, and yeah, it was a cool idea. I will say my one nitpick with this, I know Audrey Hepburn, this was a big like step away from her typical film. She was in stuff like Breakfast at Tiffany's and I believe My Fair Lady. So for her to be in like a horror movie at the time, a suspense thriller, was kind of like a huge step out of her comfort zone. There's some overacting in the film by her, but like I said, that's a nitpick. A little overzealous for me in parts, but Alan Arkin in this movie plays a creep bad guy so very well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave Wait Until Dark a 4 out of 5. So there's that. Next, a movie that Bridget had recommended to me. She, I believe, watched it with her mom. And it is called A Futile and Stupid Gesture. And this movie is about Doug Kenny and Henry Beard and them starting the National Lampoon newspaper, magazine, and turning it into what it turned into, doing the radio show, and then obviously National Lampoon's Animal House and whatnot. The movie pretty much tells the story of Doug Kenny's life. There's an all-star cast in this film, tons of familiar faces, lots of people from like Upright Citizens Brigade and SNL and the other troupe, the other comedy troupe. Not Lemmings. There's another comedy troupe that like a lot of people who are in this movie were all part of those. Tons of in-references to SNL, Caddyshack, Animal House, and other things. Like, not just when they were talking about those things, but other parts of the movie were like quotes or like a loose play on scenes from those movies. So I enjoyed that part of it quite a bit. The movie definitely is a lot more depressing than I expected, but once again, they say that comedy comes from very dark places, and you can see with Doug Kenny what he went through, what his life was. A very interesting story because I did not get to witness the National Lampoon phenomenon firsthand. Obviously, I wasn't even born when Animal House or Caddyshack came out, and that was, not at the peak of their popularity. Their popularity was in the like early 70s, big time. So, like I said, I was intrigued by this movie. I thought it was interesting. Laughed at parts. Some of it, like I said, downright depressing, but just a fun watch, especially if you're into like stand-up comedy, comedy history. I appreciate it. Like I said, tons of familiar faces. Will Forte plays Doug Kenny. Joel McHale plays Chevy Chase. So, like I said, lots of in things. And yeah, they talked about making an Animal House and making of Caddyshack. I gave A Futile and Stupid Gesture a 3.5 out of 5. It is on Netflix. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. The next thing we watched, I actually got from Lionsgate in a digital screener, so it was watermarked with my information on it and everything. And we had to like mirror my phone to the TV, so it wasn't a full screen. But saw the trailer for this movie and was incredibly curious about it, and that film is Habit, which stars Bella Thorne, Gavin Rossdale, the lead singer of Bush. Bella Thorne plays a character who recently moved to California, went to California, who's obsessed with Jesus, but also uses drugs and parties and dresses very provocatively. Kind of weird what her character arc is, considering her character's backstory. Just a bit bizarre. The movie has a lot of weird cuts and visuals throughout the film that I found incredibly distracting. I guess this is a saving grace. The movie has an 80-minute runtime, and the movie was only actually 73 minutes long. As soon as the credits rolled, I turned it off, so I'm not sure if there was anything post-credits or not. I shut it off as soon as it was over. Gavin Rossdale plays like a 90s TV star who has a severe cocaine habit and also hires young girls to sell drugs for him, and basically the girls get robbed, and then the drug lord is after Gavin Rossdale and the girls. That is pretty much the premise of this movie. It's very messy. I can't really recommend it, even though Lionsgate was kind enough to send it over to me digitally. I give it a 1.5 out of 5. So that was Habit. Next up, this was yesterday. We actually watched 3 movies. Bridget and I were doing eBay stuff. Like, she was posting stuff on eBay and I was pricing out stuff and organizing things. So we wanted to put something on TV, and we were going to just watch TV shows. But we had talked about revisiting these movies. So I said, why don't we put these on? We've watched them numerous times and we could watch certain scenes, and it's just one of those movies where you can pay attention, because I've seen the first 2 of this franchise so many times. We did not get a chance to watch the third one. So the first title here is Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, from 1997. This movie is now 24 years old, which is crazy. I was 13 when it came out, so I watched it probably when I was 13 or 14 for the first time. Probably Mike Myers at his comedic peak. He was doing this. He was getting ready to do Shrek. He had done Wayne's World and SNL, but I think this was probably like peak Mike Myers. These movies were massive in the box office. The movie is still highly quotable. It holds up. It's still very funny, and I was laughing throughout. I gave International Man of Mystery a 3.5. Then we watched my favorite in the franchise, a movie I watched a ton as a 15-year-old kid, and that is Austin Powers in The Spy Who Shagged Me. Heather Graham is in that one, as opposed to Elizabeth Hurley, who was in the first one. This introduces probably my favorite character in the Austin Powers universe, even though I love Dr. Evil and Scott Evil. I love the fat guy who's introduced in Spy Who Shagged Me used to imitate him and quote him quite a bit as a 15-year-old kid. Oh, I'm dead sexy. Look at my sexy body. You know who I'm talking about. Oh, I got the turtle head poking out. Oh, Christ, it's making me all emotional. Anyway, so 15-year-old Rick thought that there would never be a funnier movie that he ever watched in his life outside The Spy Who Shagged Me. Grown-up Rick still finds it incredibly funny. Not the funniest movie ever, but very funny. Holds up very well. I enjoy it. Hopefully in the near future we will watch Goldmember, although I remember being on Goldmember. Definitely not as good as the first two, but maybe on a rewatch I'll be totally wrong. So yes, 3.5 for International Man of Mystery, which I believe I said, but a 4 out of 5 for The Spy Who Shagged Me. Like I said, my favorite in the franchise. And then I recently mentioned this when I unboxed it in my fun boxing video. I said, I think Bridget and I are going to watch this. I'm going to put it at the top of the list. And sure enough, I recorded those videos yesterday. Last night we watched it finally. I've been waiting to revisit this. And it is the 4K ultra high definition version of Almost Famous. Now we watched the standard theatrical cut, which is just over 2 hours. There's also the bootleg cut. This is a 2 4K disc set. Each movie is on one disc, which is awesome. There are a ton of special features too that I didn't even dive into last night, but I was excited to watch the movie, and my God, this holds up. This movie is outstanding. You guys know I am a sucker for films about music with great soundtracks, and this movie is quintessential like music movie fan. So I saw this movie for the first time when I was 17 years old, and I thought there would be nothing cooler than being a 15-year-old touring with a band, writing articles for Rolling Stone about that band, getting to live like that crazy rock and roll lifestyle. The movie has an outstanding soundtrack, a cast. There's cameos in this movie that obviously when I watched this at 17, I didn't know who half these people would turn out to be. Let's see, Jimmy Fallon is in the movie briefly. Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, Mark Maron, Mitch Hedberg. I'm not even talking about the major people, you know, your Kate Hudsons, Patrick Fugit. Rainn Wilson is in this movie as one of the higher-ups at Rolling Stone. Philip Seymour Hoffman is fantastic in this movie. Billy Crudup, Jason Lee. The cast is insane, especially looking back on it now. And the movie's semi-autobiographical by the filmmaker Cameron Crowe. It's just outstanding. It has probably one of, I know it's my buddy Seth's, one of his favorite scenes in a movie. It really is a great scene. I forgot about how good it is until last night when we were watching it. And they're heading home after the guitar player jumps off the roof and yells, "I'm a golden god," and they're in the tour bus. And Elton John's Tiny Dancer comes on. And one at a time, they're all kind of staring out the window, and they all start singing, slow, like they all chime in at different times and start singing along to Tiny Dancer. And I think what's great about this movie is it shows how music can affect all different people's lives. Not only the people in the bands, but, you know, Patrick Fugit's character is the writer, even his sister in the beginning of the movie, the kid who's obsessed with Led Zeppelin. It shows you how music affects people in all sorts of different ways. And the movie is just amazing. I gave Almost Famous a 5 out of 5. I cannot recommend this movie enough. I think it's absolutely fantastic. The 4K looks pretty good. Not fantastic, but pretty good. I was actually worried because the beginning of the movie is extremely grainy. Almost looks like it was shot like on a VHS camera. But then as soon as the credits start rolling, all was good. I was really worried, like, is the movie going to look like this? This looks bad, but just the way the beginning 2 minutes of the movie are shot. So Almost Famous on 4K, like I said, 5 out of 5. An amazing film. That is it, guys. So thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully you guys enjoy all the content I'm putting out. Be sure to hit the subscribe button down below if you guys don't do so already. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video, and also hit the notification bell so you guys know when new videos drop on the channel. Down below in the description box, you can find links to my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, where I rate and review all the movies I watch, Blu-ray.com profile, Amazon wishlist, eBay store, P.O. box, and email address, all down below. So that is it, guys. As always, until next time, who's down to movie?